I love technology. I use technology everywhere I go. But you're quite right. As a rule, I don't sit at home casting my own content to my own TV because I have an ecosystem of pieces of hardware throughout my house that can serve up what I need. My content is available on all of them, and you're quite right. We need to offer that same extension in the hotel rooms. Now, I think you're right that, as Darren pointed out, there has been those two camps, and I think each one has their own merits, if you like, and there are going to be guests who prefer one way or another. But I think it's very true to say that the majority of guests, if they're accessing, let's say, Netflix or Disney Plus or Apple TV Plus or something like that, that they're doing it through a device, either an Apple TV or maybe a smart TV, or maybe on a tablet of their own, rather than possibly accessing it on their phone or tablet and casting it to their TV at home. I think some people will do that. I think there are some people interested in that. However, I think a lot of people do log in. Now, whether people's expectation of that experience being the same or not in the hotel, I'm not sure. I think there are a number of people out there who have concerns about typing their credentials into a foreign device or screen, which I understand now. I already know it's obvious that the solution providers out there have done something to make sure to alleviate those concerns. In fact, one of the solution providers I used to work for some time ago had an approach where, obviously, when the guest room was checked out through the property management system, the credentials were wiped. However, some guests couldn't be sure of this because when those credentials were wiped was when they checked out. So obviously they couldn't go back into the room and check themselves. So we actually had to put in a button to allow the guests to clear the credentials themselves. I don't know if anyone's got any kind of ideas on that. I mean, Hanu and Joe, I'm interested to hear your opinions as possible guests and being less technically involved with these kind of solutions. How you feel about entering your credentials into a screen? Do you feel comfortable with it? And do you are you happy with the reassurances that the hotel can give you? Because we know from a technical standpoint that it works perfectly. But how do you feel from your own personal view?
I don't think people are that comfortable typing in credentials to foreign devices, as you say. I agree with what Nick said earlier, that I think people want a seamless transaction to watch things on TVs, etc. So from my point of view, I want it to be as easy as possible. I don't know what Hannah thinks, but that was my thought.
Yeah, I totally agree, Joe. It's well, some people don't have any problem with it, but I'm sure that there are a lot of people who, just don't like to, like you said, enter the credentials. But then the challenge is the diversity. I mean, there are Netflix, there is HBO, there is Disney, there is so many others. The hotels, they need to have everything available that the particular guest will want. For example, I use Netflix and I watch series from there. I don't care about what's in HBO if I don't get access to my Netflix. So that somehow needs to be secure and easy. And to be honest, I'm not sure what would be the best way to tackle it right now.
Okay.
Stay at one of our hotels, Hannah, and then you'll feel comfortable.
That's it. Yeah. Tell us some more, Darren, really. I'm interested to know what you're doing that makes sure the guest feels reassured. Because like I said, I would enter my credentials because I feel happy. It's just I get that feedback from people.
Yeah, I think Hannah and Joe have got a very good point, and there's always going to be people that are concerned. I mean, we addressed it just by having literally a little tiny app on the Apple TV that you just click and it does the reset in front of your very eyes. It still tells you that it will wipe on checkout, but it's just to try and give those people comfort. But I think the two concepts aren't necessarily right or wrong. I think, and maybe they can in some circumstances coexist. You can offer, login for those customers who are happy to log in to do so. And I believe they get a better experience overall if they do. Their content's going straight over the Ethernet backbone. It's not going over the Wi-Fi. It's not being redirected from anything, so the resolution is consistent immediately. There's lots of quality improvements that you do from logging in directly, and certainly if you're staying more than 1 or 2 nights, I think the comfort levels to log in are much higher, and they're all making it so much easier. Whether it be Netflix, Prime, YouTube. If any of you have bought any device recently, you'll see that the TV, whether it be a set-top box, whether it be a smart TV, whether it be a Roku player, they basically say to you, hey, just launch your YouTube app or your Amazon app on your normal device and put in this 4-digit code on our screen, and you're logged in. Yeah. So you haven't put any passwords or anything into the system, and yet your in-room TV is now all ready with all of your favorite stuff, all of your preferences, all the stuff box sets you were watching last week and the week before that. And it's analyzing, if you're using things like TV Plus, it's analyzing all the things you like to watch and making suggestions. So I don't think it's a right or wrong answer, James. I think you have to try and cater for both those audiences. But to Nick's point, and I'm the same believer, is, in my life, I was lucky enough to be an Apple reseller for 26 years before I started my kind of hospitality interest in 2009. And what I learned from working with Apple as a reseller, and we were involved in education, in creative, and video, and retail, was that the consumerization of IT changed the world overnight. And Apple was a big, everyone knows that Apple led that whole change. So, throughout my career, I've followed the consumer. What is the consumer doing? What are my kids doing at home? What are my friends doing at home? And if they are sitting at home watching YouTube on their iPads or on the TV, or they're watching Netflix or Amazon, then there's a good chance that that's what the majority of guests want to use in a hotel. Even my 75-year-old mum, she is watching Netflix now, day in, day out, especially now she's on lockdown. It's an awful situation for us. Yeah. But it's far worse for other people, right? The elderly, absolutely, and the people that are at high risk. So I think more than ever, it's going to become an expectation of hotels, and then it's about how the technology partners that the hotel chooses deliver that installation and that solution to make it easy, to your point, to make it stable and consistently reliable, without having to change networks and do this and do that and do the other. So
now that is when put my guest hat on here rather than technology consultant. That is the biggest frustration I've had, where you walk into a room and there's a guide that tells you about a different network to connect to and things like that. It feels like the where you have to put a process in place to educate a guest how to do something that should be reasonably intuitive. That doesn't feel like you've got quite the solution right. Interestingly, you mentioned about the 4-digit code through YouTube. Obviously, it was 4 or 5 weeks back, I got the chance to stay in one of the hotels with your solution, Darren. And I did that exact same thing myself, which did allow me to just enter that code. And then I had access to all my YouTube content straight away without actually having to type my password in, which was great. Coming back to the point about processors and about the availability of the solution, I'm just wanting to see if I can bring Nick in again, whether you've got anything to add to that, Nick, from your time sort of developing the guest experience with Citizen M. And then,
I do actually have a few things. Two points. One, the benefits that Darren is alluding to, the benefits to be able to walk into a hotel room, to have your device somehow discover the capabilities of that hotel room and participate by offering up identity and so on, is determined in some way by the underlying network architecture of the hotel. And this is a very important point that I think a lot of people overlook. They see the end result and they think it's all about putting an Apple TV in or something like that. But so much of it is actually down to the underlying network architecture and something we call the personal area network. So if I was giving a single piece of advice to somebody starting today, saying, if you really want to bring the best consumer tech into a hotel room and give that guest a seamless experience, you have to make your hotel network architecture look like the network that you have in your home. And in fact, not just one network that you have in your home. You have to basically make your hotel look like 100 homes or 200 homes, where each room is individually constructed as a personal area network. And if you do that, then when you go in that room and your device looks around the home, which is your room, and says, what other devices are here? How can I engage with those devices and offer identity and offer credentials and so on? You are speaking to the television that you have in your guest room, or the Apple TV that you have in your guest room, or whatever other devices you might have, rather than the TV next door. And I think that's a very important point. So